Donald Trump looked absolutely awful during his attendance at a 9/11 ceremony at the Pentagon. His face was very droopy. He seemed addled, like he didn't even know where he was. Now, this comes on the same day as we learned earlier this morning that inflation was coming in way hotter than even expected. Headline inflation surged to 2.9%. Core inflation surged to 3.1%. And in addition, we're now seeing photographs of the individual they are saying is the suspect in the shooting of Charlie Kirk. You see the individual right here. He seems to be wearing an American flag eagle shirt, looks like a skinny white person in this photo. So as Trump and MAGA continues to attack liberals, I've always said it's important that we get the accurate information and we know what's really happening here. This is from the FBI Salt Lake City social media account. It says, "We're asking for the public's help identifying this person of interest in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk," and it gives a phone number right there. We'll provide more information as well as we learned here. Now back to Donald Trump looking awful and his droopy face and looking cognitively addled. When you'll hear a bell being rung, Donald Trump's face also is kind of very jarring kind of reaction. There have been people in the past who have said that Donald Trump had experienced mini strokes. Doctors, renowned doctors, have said that. I'm not a doctor. My background is being a former lawyer, but I can certainly gather evidence together. But this was Trump at the 9/11 commemoration at the Pentagon earlier today. Watch the droopy face. Watch it seems like he doesn't know where he is right now. Here, play this clip.
Hilda E. Taylor. Lieutenant Colonel Kip P. Taylor, United States Army. Leonard E. Taylor. Sandra C. Taylor. Sandra D. Teague.
And you'll recall back in 2019, Trump made an unannounced visit to the Walter Reed Medical Center, and there were people who speculated at the time if he was suffering from mini strokes, and is that why he slurs his words, and why he seems to not know where he is, and why he can't complete sentences. This is a former Obama doctor, but a renowned doctor, Dr. Shiner. Here's what he previously had to say. Play this clip.
Well, he may have energy, but on the other hand, when he plays golf, which is his physical exercise, he always uses a cart. So the only exercise he gets is swinging a golf club. The other thing is the cardiologist, after his last physical exam, said that he was in the upper 20% in terms of cardiovascular risk. So he has got some real risk factors. His inability to say words sometimes worries me tremendously. He is having trouble word finding when he said United States instead of United States. These aren't words, these aren't slips of the tongue. These are words, he can't find them. And this is happening over and over again. Comedians joke about it, but it's not a joking matter. I think there is a neurological issue that is not being addressed.
Over year, core increasing 3.1% year over year. Higher food, gas, and shelter costs drove inflation up in August. Cars, apparel, and airfares also saw cost surge, but this is where the middle class squeeze is happening, and frankly, not just middle class. Everybody other than people who are like really rich are getting squeezed right now. You take a look at from last year to this year, like last August to this August, the price of coffee up 21%, audio equipment up 12%, living and dining room furniture up 10%, tools up 6%, jewelry and watches up 6%, women's dresses, men's pants, clothing up 6%, toilet paper up 5%, musical instruments and photo equipment plus 5%, and more to come in months ahead. I recently spoke with Brendan Boyle, the ranking Democrat on the House Budget Committee. The big concern here is this is not the end. This is quite literally the start of more Trump inflation, and that this is expected to surge more heading into 2026 and 2027. This should not be a surprise to you if you exist in the world where you see prices, where you go to grocery stores, where you buy things. You know prices are significantly more expensive. But as Heather Long points out, even more worrying news is that initial jobless claims soared to 263,000 last week. That's the highest in almost 4 years, meaning the height of COVID. Cost cutting is back among CEOs, and what that means is mass layoffs taking place. And again, this shouldn't come as a shock to you, because if you exist in the world, you know friends and humans who have been laid off who cannot enter this job market. It's as bad as it's been in a generation. This is the Trump economy. Then you have this, page 1 from the Wall Street Journal. Health insurance costs for businesses surge, the fastest rate of increase since at least 2011. You know that your healthcare costs are surging. Business healthcare costs are surging as well. Even though Donald Trump promised to bring down healthcare costs, he's done the exact opposite. It is at record highs at this point. Now, additional data points. Remember the raid that took place at that Georgia Hyundai factory where the South Korean workers were training Americans how to handle the how to work in this factory, and then ICE, like in a military style raid that they posted on social media, rounded up and shackled South Koreans who were here lawfully, who had their papers, but they were treated like war criminals. Do you remember that? So apparently Trump offered to allow them to stay in the U.S., but they all said, no thank you, we're going to go back to South Korea. And now we know that that plant in Georgia is delayed. Hyundai delays Georgia battery plant. They're delaying the construction. And that's going to cause many job losses in Georgia. You just look at this graph right here. You see the jobless claims since Trump declared Liberation Day, which I called Liquidation Day. And as Spencer Kimian writes, it's getting uglier and uglier by the day. Folks, it is September 11th. And on September 11th, I want to acknowledge all of the heroes who perished that day, all of the first responders who were out there that day. I want to acknowledge all of the people who lost their lives, their family members. It is a day that we will always remember. I grew up in Long Island, New York. My dad was working in Manhattan. My uncle worked in one of the buildings right adjacent to the two big towers at the World Trade Center. I remember the day very vividly. I was in 11th grade, and in my school on September 11th, they would call names over the loudspeaker of people whose parents were dying on 9/11 or whose parents were missing. And you would listen to see if your parents, my dad worked in the city, although he was more in Midtown, you would listen, and then they would call the names, and it was a day I remember being in the library, transfixed on the TV as the names were being called of people whose parents were missing. We had lots of firefighters in our area who died on 9/11, and lots of families, lots of students who lost their parents on 9/11. But you all remember what Donald Trump was saying on 9/11. His initial reaction was to brag that he now owned the tallest building in downtown Manhattan. Here, play this clip.
You have one of the landmark buildings down in the financial district, 40 Wall Street. Did you have any damage, or did you know what's happened down there?
Well, it was an amazing phone call I made. 40 Wall Street actually was the second tallest building in downtown Manhattan, and it was actually, before the World Trade Center, was the tallest. And then when they built the World Trade Center, it became known as the second tallest, and now it's the...
Also, I do want to point out that we're seeing this, again, dangerous rhetoric over and over again from MAGA Republicans, essentially calling for a civil war, essentially calling for mass roundups and massacres of liberals and Democrats following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This follows a very dangerous pattern with these MAGAs. We saw it with the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Remember, they blamed liberals did this, and it turns out it was a Trump supporter. It was like what do they call them, like groypers who did it. And same thing we're seeing here. Like, I'm going to show you this clip right here of a MAGA Republican Congress member Onder and what he just said. But we don't know the facts and the data. And as the data comes out, again, I don't know much information about this killer other than this photo. It's a white skinny kid wearing an American flag shirt. And they try to, and remember what they did too with Melissa Hortman, who was assassinated, political assassination recently in Minnesota. The former Speaker of the House, their Speaker Emerita of the House, they started saying, "Oh, the Democrats did it." They flood the zone with the nastiest language, trying to rile people up for like a civil war against Democrats and liberals. And we've just been out here saying, look, our heart goes out to Charlie Kirk's family. We condemn political violence. But this seems to be a pretext for right-wing media and right-wing influencers to go and encourage more violence. It's horrific. Here is the MAGA Republican Congress member Bob Onder. Here, play this clip.
Well, what for us? Well, everything has changed. If we didn't know it already, there is no longer any middle ground. Some of the American left are undoubtedly well-meaning people, but their ideology is pure evil. They hate the good, the truth, and the beautiful, and embrace the evil, the false, and the ugly. And they literally will kill those with whom they disagree, just as their predecessor leftists, Marx and Stalin and Lenin and Pol Pot and Fidel Castro did. We must know that.
And finally, I want to leave you with this. There was a school shooting yesterday in Colorado that left 3 students injured. Horrific school shooting in Colorado yesterday. And Kyle Clark, no one does it as good as Kyle Clark. He's one of the best journalists out there. Kyle Clark from NBC9, he reflected on, yes, this was a day where Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. It was also a day where students, innocent students, showed up to school, were shot as well. And that on a frequent basis, we're seeing these types of school shootings. And this should not be something that any society endures. Here, play this clip.
A famous man was shot in Utah today, a friend of the American president. School children were shot here in Colorado today, friends to their classmates at Evergreen High. Each of their lives had worth and value that no other person had a right to try and take. But all of them, all of us, live in a country where too many are sick with the delusion that somehow violence is going to solve our problems. Specifically, that picking up a gun and shooting somebody is going to solve our problems. A country where anger is not just accepted, but it is encouraged, where talk of vengeance and reprisals is now just openly seeping out of the dark corners of the internet and into the echoes of dark minds. It's a sickness that cannot be isolated, not to one kind of community, not to one kind of school, not to one type of political ideology. It is everywhere in this country. And this thinking that violence, that shooting someone is going to solve a problem is a sickness that does not always claim the life of the afflicted. Too often, it's the life of someone else, which means that not any one of us, not a friend of the president or a friend to their classmates, is safe.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe.